Okay, so now that you've picked your template, I'm going to show you how and where we're going to have you copy this, and we'll end up creating a new folder in your public called P0, and that is 0 for project 0. Then you'll complete the GitHub workflow, right, and then give the URL, and then you'll do some review. You review your file and find at least 3 code or files you want to learn more about. I'll come back to this at the end. But the important thing here is really the process of copying it. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go over to VS Code. I'm going to open up my repo. I'm going to have my public open. And actually, I think I'm going to just go ahead and I'd probably recommend this is I would open just my pub itself. In this case, my pub that way. Okay, so that way I have it open here, and that way I have a little less to look at. And then in here, again, yours might look a little different. I'll make mine just a little bigger here, right? I'd make, in this case, at the root, I'd make a new folder called P0. Okay. So now that I have that there, I'm going to bring up, because for me, when I downloaded it and I chose the portfolio one, and this is where each of us will have a little different files. Okay, your files will look different. Now in this case, I'm looking at them inside the what we call the Finder, but it's just very similar to what you would see on Windows. And so what I would do here is I have this portfolio subdirectory, but I've already created my P0. So you don't necessarily want to bring over this subdirectory, you just want to bring over the contents. And one of the things I do is when I'm doing something like this, I kind of try to recreate it bit by bit because I can kind of see where things need to be brought over. And I mean, you could bring over the whole thing. Again, don't bring over whatever the base is. Remember, what you want to do is find out where the index file is at. That's kind of your starting point. And that's whatever is going, wherever that's in the structure, is what will go in the P0. And this is why, because each of us will have a little different structure, I can't tell you exactly how to do it. But I'm going to show you kind of the way I approach it. So in this case, I have 3 files that are in the root of that template. So what I would do is drag these over to P0 right here, and I'd drop them in. Now as soon as I do that, of course, they turn green. The other thing I would do is go ahead and fire up Live Server, and when these come up, I'd go to P0, and I could look at it here. Now what this is showing me is just the base content of the site, which is fine, right? Because and then I could start looking in more detail. I could go into inspect, right? And I could look at, because immediately what we see is that there's no CSS, and that would be true because if you go into the heading and you look at, oh, there we have a favicon, we have some Google fonts, so should have come across, but again, they didn't because we don't have any CSS files. So unlike what we did with doing the CDN when we were using or going through our bootstrap, most likely, again, this all I can't say conclusively, most likely you'll get these CSS files downloaded locally, and one of them will be the bootstrap file, but there could be other files as well. And then in this case, they also gave me a style sheet that is a custom style sheet. But in this case, let's see, we could go look at what the AOS is. But these are the file, and they're in asset, vendor, AOS, CSS. And you can kind of see they're all under the vendor asset. So in order for me to go grab those files, then what I could do is bring back my vendor file. And I'm like, oh, okay, look, there's an asset folder. Okay, so if I just now this is really important that I'm keeping the same structure that I had, right? If I keep the same structure that it has in this subdirectory, then I'm in fine shape. And that's kind of why I like to do it a step at a time. And look what happened then, right? And what this really is helping you to do is understand the way the file or the site is put together from a relatively high level perspective. Okay. Now, again, yours could look differently. The important thing is what I said before, and let me come back here and say it again. When you unzip it, you'll probably get a folder name with the template name. But what you're going to do is find the index file. And now it may be in a subdirectory down here, but that's what you'll put inside of your P0 directory. That's what needs to go inside of there. As a matter of fact, now, probably what I would do is stop live server and now open P0. Like I'd go pub, oh, sorry, let's go open file, open folder. I'd go into pub and I'd go into here. All right, because then I'm really looking at just that part of the site, and that, to me, would be much more helpful to do that. Again, the other one worked, but this is generally when I'm working on a site, especially in the folder structure we've created. Right, so now I have assets, and now I can see my CSS. That's the custom one, and now I see images. So there are all the images. I see some JS, and then I see the vendor stuff, right? So then I would go through here and look at, okay, how much of this do I need? Is there any of it I could get rid of that I don't need? Now this PHP email, right, this is a JS file for validating the contact form, which we don't have to do for our project. There's a pure counter, so a little more JS. So this is where you spend a little time, even if you don't exactly know what those things are. It wouldn't take a lot of searching to go find out what they are. Okay. And then I just like to go through and figure out, okay, what am I going to keep? Now, this is also the process we're going to end up going through over the next week, is building out our sites. Right, so for now, I just brought it all over. Now for me, and I talked about the pre-processor last time, and for my version, it doesn't come with it, so I don't have to worry about it. But for yours, you might. And really what you'll end up looking at, now here's again the custom style sheet, and then there's some style sheets that's for the vendor itself. Right, and so what you want to do is just start, and this again was something we're going to end up doing, is start analyzing. This will be the next task, is where we start looking at how is the site built, right? What is it? What is it? You know, I have these links to and try to figure out what does this mean, right? What do these? We know what the bootstrap is. And you can go look at what the icons are. Again, I'm looking at my site. Your site should look different. Might look some of the same. Okay. So now that I have this, is there anything else I didn't bring over? Yeah, there was this form. Now, I'm probably not going to use this, but it wouldn't hurt me to bring it over. So I would go ahead and come here. I don't need it in the asset. What I want to do is look at the structure where it was setting at the same level, right, as the assets. Perfect. So what I'd do here is I'd roll this up and I'd drop it right in there. So I'll do this. Why isn't it dropping? And try that again. This is where it should just, there it goes. Should just drop right in. Oh, actually it didn't. Oh, it did. Hold on a second. Sorry, that was a little confusing. What I want to do here, because I want it at the same level, I could just drop it into this side, and then it would just add, I want to copy the folder over. There we go. Okay, so I selected copy it over, and there we go. So now I have at least the form in case I ever want to use it in the future. And I'm getting some messages here about PHP. Nothing I have to worry about right now. So when you end up, what you should end up with is the P0 folder we created, the index files, and then whatever structure you need to recreate the site. And you know you're successful when you're running the live server. And most of the sites there, it looks okay. Now this again is a one-page single, and I'll end up having to make individual pages out of this. Something we'll do in the coming weeks. But for now, it's a good start. So now what I'd want to do is go over to my VS Code. Now this is where right? Hopefully none of my assets are really big files. I'd probably want to make sure there's nothing over 50 meg. Probably is not, but and remember, and this we hit up against this when we were doing the generative AI assignment. So the reason I would just kind of look around here is before I do it, just to see if I'd run into anything, because I might want to like say I don't need that. That's something, because you'll end up changing a lot of this, the content. You'll change all the content. Some of the images you might keep, but you'll actually end up getting new images as well. Okay, so now that you've played around, have enough information, now I'm going to come into here. I'm going to do git add star git commit -m, and I'm going to say adding template files. Okay, now this is a big commit. There's a lot in there. Okay, and now this is the git push, and hopefully if I didn't run into anything that was too big, I should be fine. Mine was fine. That's where also maybe doing, this is what I was kind of recommending last time, kind of doing some thinking about, sometimes we look at templates and they look great, but then we start looking at the code and realize, maybe not so much. Okay, so what you'll end up doing, and I have not done yet, because this is the important part, is first you're going to do what I just did, which is complete the Git workflow, right? And then, if you remember, right, so I'm going to do, I got to remember my Git 82, there we go. So this is our public repo, so now we do P0, and if everything turned out okay, you should see in this URL, okay, your template showing up, okay, as it just has been copied over. So this is now, okay, in this discussion, you'll hit reply here, right? You'll make sure that's a link. And now what you want to do, and I've kind of already talked you through some of this, you get to kind of focus on the parts you might want to focus on, but review your file. It should be review your files and find at least 3 things I should say here, because like if I again go back and look at mine, I would probably want to spend some time looking at this vendor subdirectory and looking what are these box icons, right? What the glitch box, what's the swiper, what is that, and you can kind of look in here, but you can also do some web searching to figure out what some of that is, right? And find 3 code or files that you want to learn more about, and in your reply besides your URL, then post post those things you found out more about, and tell us the results of doing that research. Okay, now in this case it's 115 words, no replies needed, but again, the process I just walked you through was for my template, which was maybe it will be different than yours. So if you need help, please reach out so that I can help you with. And remember this, when you're looking, don't give us the live server URL. We won't be able to see that. We will only be able to see the URL that we've all been using for our pub sites or public on our GitHub repo, but remember to put that P0 so that we can actually see your rendered template. Okay, hope this helps.